So thank you so much to everyone for joining our workshop, Scaling a Multi-Channel Food Hub with Region Roots. We're super excited to have Ashley Berry here joining us from the Region Roots team. She is the Wholesale Partnerships Coordinator there. If you're not familiar with Region Roots, they are a nonprofit local food hub operated by the Northwest Indiana Food Council, and I believe they started in 2021. So they work to connect small scale and underserved farms with different wholesale market opportunities. And they also run many different programs, such as a farm to school program, a farm club, and a home delivery service. So Ashley is the first point of contact for all food producers and buyers looking to work with Region Roots. And she also manages their Food Hub's local line storefront. In her role, she's dedicated to advocating for producers and their unique needs, as well as developing partnerships between buyers, sellers, and community institutions. So we're really excited to have her here today. So thank you so much for joining us. Moderating the call today, we have Andrew Meehan from Local Line. Andrew was actually a former Local Line user for his CSA before he joined our team. So he really understands the importance of solutions, of tech solutions that allow both farmers and food hubs increase their revenues and efficiencies. So we're super excited to have them here both to chat more about what Region Roots is up to, how they've scaled, any advice that Ashley may have for those doing the same thing or something similar. A few housekeeping things before I pass it over to Andrew. So this session is recorded. So if you have to jump at any point, we will send out an email afterwards with a recording so you can watch it back. If you want to share it with a friend, please do so. The beginning part of this workshop will be a moderated Q&A between Andrew and Ashley, and then after we'll open it up to audience Q&A. So if there's anything throughout that you want to learn more about, questions for Ashley or for Andrew, be sure to pop those. You can use the chat, see a few people using that, which is awesome. There's also the Q&A function, so feel free to use that. I'll be moderating both. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Andrew to kick us off.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nina. And thanks everybody for joining us. Also, thank you, Ashley, for making the time. We really, really appreciate it. I always find it very helpful when we can share this webinar with other prospective local line users, just so folks can better understand how real food hubs and farms are using the software. So thank you so much, Ashley. Yeah, I guess to start, I'm going to jump right into our first question here. Can you give us a quick overview of Region Roots in terms of what the organization does, who you serve, and how your model has evolved over time?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Nina and Andrew, for your introductions. Region Roots is a food hub that is underneath the Northwest Indiana Food Council, both nonprofits. Um, and although our founding board of the Northwest Indiana Food Council had a vision to start a food hub back in 2015 when that was founded, Region Roots is really a product of the pandemic. So our co-executive director, Virginia, was doing value chain coordination work, developing institutional markets. And then when that pandemic hit, all of that work really stalled. And we had to make a shift. She had to make a shift to providing technical assistance to farmers markets and others who were still open at that time to try and make sure farmers still had outlets for their goods. Our farmers were really trying to make sure that their communities were fed when the grocery store shelves were bare. So part of what we saw emerge was farmers texting each other lists of what they had available, buying from each other, moving food around, and they were really driving a lot more than a farmer should be having to drive, on top of the work of producing the food itself. So we realized that logistical piece was something that we could help out with. So in May of 2021, we launched with our first delivery, which was one box of food moving from farm to farm. And in those early months, we kind of stayed focused on farmer to farmer sales, so that we could work out the kinks before we go more public. And then later that summer, we expanded into restaurants and continuing to develop those institutional relationships. So most of our business in that 2021, 2022 year was farmers and restaurants. But then in 2023, that really changed. We were awarded a grant to begin our food box distributions to first-time moms through our Farm Her to Mama program. And we were one of two distributors in the state of Indiana who was awarded the Local Food for Schools funding to distribute local food for free to schools in our area. And really, that was transformative for us. We went from selling $3,000 of produce a week to over $30,000, pretty much overnight. So that was a big change for us. And then, yeah, in 2024, we continued those distributions, continued to grow our Farm Her to Mama program, and began working with food banks in our area. But then in 2025, that LFS, Local Food for Schools grant, was unfortunately canceled. So we needed to pivot really quickly. And we had already been planning to launch a CSA, a multi-farm CSA, with the support of our farmers. And that LFS cancellation meant that we really needed to speed that up and get it launched. So in many ways, the lessons that we learned during the pandemic prepared us to be responsive and adaptive. We leaned into our internal programming like Farm Her to Mama and our food as medicine work, worked with schools to transition them to paying buyer accounts rather than through LFS only. And we really worked to develop new and deepen our existing relationships to make sure that we're keeping roofs over the heads of our farmers because they are at the center of everything we do and couldn't do any of this without them.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you. Actually, it sounds like you guys are providing a really valuable service to farms, allowing them, to focus on their production while securing these different sales channels. So, yeah, wonderful to hear about that. That's great. As for my next question, I know you guys operate across multiple sales channels, including wholesale, these school programs that you mentioned, as well as direct to consumer and some community programs. How did you guys decide to build a multi-channel approach, and what role does each channel play today in the organization?
Absolutely, yeah. So we really started with an emphasis on wholesale sales because it was the gap that our farmers needed filled, and it was what they needed the most technical assistance on. Most of them were already successfully selling direct to consumer at markets or through their farms or CSAs. So planning for our community programs like Farm Her to Mama kind of followed up that wholesale um, sales that we developed, which was driven by the fact that our council really strives to emphasize the equal importance of supporting farms and making sure they're viable and supporting community food access. We really want to emphasize both. Um, Local Food for Schools was a huge opportunity that opened up the possibility of institutional scale wholesale sales. And it helped our farmers see the potential for what the hub could be and what we could grow into. Um, Adding direct to consumer channels onto our own platform was something that only happened once our farmers were kind of ready to take it on with us. So, with the increase in wholesale sales, some of them no longer had the time or the ability, the capacity to manage an independent CSA. So, then that kind of launched our tendency to want to open a new CSA through us. And then another program launched in 2025 through us to help kind of fill the gaps for our farmers and for our community members that weren't yet supported by one of our programs. So we launched our senior farmers market nutrition program called EFMNP. So we worked with the state to get our farmers recognized as a cooperative so that they could accept those benefits from the state. So the pre-order boxes for seniors would get delivered to a congregate site, like a senior center, where seniors are already meeting, but kind of to lower those transportation barriers for them. So just different examples of how the different needs arose out of yeah, we saw these different needs arise in our community and for our farmers, and then tried to build upon that. But a couple of important things about our community food programs and our direct-to-consumer farm club is that both of them still provide opportunities for our farms to have guaranteed wholesale quantity, large-scale sales, even if the food is going to those individual households once we pack it on our end. So, yeah, managing the logistics, the distribution, the packing, the invoicing. On the farmer side, that looks like one sale to us rather than hundreds of sales to different community members. So, and then on the community member side, the purchaser side, it's really important to us that paying households and households receiving food boxes are all receiving the same quality local grown produce. So, keeping equity in mind at the center of everything and making sure that we're supporting our farmers the best that we can.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you, Ashley. Just a quick follow-up question. I'm just curious if you've received any feedback from farms. Specifically, I think about farms who maybe, see an opportunity to focus or specialize on certain crops, given that you guys are presenting the opportunity to do higher volumes. Have you seen that happening with farms at all, given you're opening the door to these larger, institutional buyers?
Absolutely, yeah. We have this year particularly kind of really focused in on production planning with our farmers
Mhm.
and telling them, what we're aware of that our other farms will have available so that they can really focus in on a specific crop. So just this morning before this meeting, I was meeting with a farmer who was saying, I want to grow three really great crops for you guys. What
Mhm.
and we were like, the schools want carrots, the programs want potatoes, and we really like your sweet potatoes. So please focus on those. So
Cool.
absolutely. The efficiency of getting to place big orders through them really helps them to be able to focus in and hone their craft on specific crops.
Yeah, that's awesome. Really cool to hear that's happening. That's great. Yeah, next question, Ashley. So you're working with a large network of producers. I jumped into your local line account. I think I saw around 75 vendors, so correct me if that's wrong, and a variety of buyers. Just curious, how do you go about managing that complexity on a day-to-day basis? I'm assuming that's where technology comes in to help, but would love to hear more about what that looks like for you.
Yeah, local line is a big, big part of that. And that's kind of where my role comes in the most as the Wholesale Partnerships Coordinator. I am in constant communication with our farmers and our buyers, trying to kind of play matchmaker and fulfill those needs as we see them. But we kind of try to manage those complexities in a few ways. First, being like standardization, setting clear expectations around produce grading, packing standards, labeling, food safety requirements. We have started providing internal training on that outside of just the requirements of having, a certification or something. So we really want to help our farmers become wholesale ready, and it just makes everything easier on us, on the customer, and on them when their produce is really good quality. Um,
That's
Centralized
wonderful.
ordering through local line is also a huge thing for
Mhm.
us, allowing all of our orders to flow through that one online platform. And buyers being able to purchase from multiple farms at once really lets us assess the demand and help those farmers continue sending in large quantities, even if each person is only getting one bag of something. So yeah. And then um, the logistics piece of it, farmers on our team, they really harvest based on the orders that they get placed. They're not harvesting outside in huge quantities unless we tell them to. So um, coordinating the aggregation and the delivery within a tight time frame to make sure that we don't waste anything, that we're maintaining freshness to our best ability. Um, those are kind of our big goals. And then, of course, relationship management, staying in close communication on all sides, supporting production planning on the farm side, and then managing expectations. Expect like sharing education about how local food can look different than store-bought food and things like that. So yeah, constant communication. And then those big operational challenges that come out of that, I would say it's kind of hard to sometimes match what farmers grow with what buyers need. That's what we're here for, and we know that that's a struggle. So supply and demand alignment, um, logistics, just like I said, that tight timeline for everything, trying to keep everything fresh can be a challenge sometimes, but that's where we try and jump in and help our farmers with that. Um, and as we are a nonprofit, we have pretty thin margins that we're working within. We have a small markup on our farmers' produce, but the farmers are paid 100% of the price that they list. So that's a great thing that Local Line's been able to offer us, is the ability to add that markup on the back end. So yeah, above all, just maintaining our intentionality of our relationships and making sure that everyone is here for the right reasons and happy to be here. Constant check-ins and things like that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, wonderful, Ashley. Thank you. Again, another follow-up that is kind of popping into my mind here. I know you mentioned earlier you heard feedback from farms that they were spending a lot of time in managing their own logistics, so driving produce around. Is that something that you guys provide as a service? Are you picking up directly from farm or like a centralized location and then bringing it back to a hub for distribution?
Yeah, so we are a distributor. We do the deliveries, and then we are also the aggregator. So we
Mhm.
work with 70 farms ish in our area. They're all within 100 miles of our hub in Crown Point, Indiana. But we kind of work on a bi-weekly basis. So if a customer places an order by 5 p.m. on Monday, then Tuesday morning I email the farmer and say, this is everything we're going to pick up on Wednesday. And then Wednesday we pick it up, it's brought back to the hub, and then the customer gets it on Thursday. And then that cycle kind of repeats. So we do it twice a week, and then they would get that on Tuesday. So yeah, it really helps us to be able to have everything packed to order. It also limits our need for cold storage because we're really just storing things overnight. We're not going to have a huge amount of stuff sitting there. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's been a big help for us.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like a really good model. That's great. Excellent. Yeah, so as you guys have grown, what are some key lessons you've learned about scaling a food hub? And what would you do differently if you were starting today?
Yeah, a big key to our success, and I think our has been our emphasis in scaling incrementally. We're doing everything in phases, making sure that we're remaining responsive and adaptive and nimble, and making sure we're listening to the farmers because this whole thing is serving them. We're an opportunity for them to get their produce out into the public. Um, our initial business plan was to set up in phases so that we could figure out how to manage one sales channel, like wholesale first, and then moving to more retail, direct to consumer, before we added another. So we also made an intentional decision not to invest in large scale infrastructure right away. We didn't have the capacity or the capital to do so, so that kind of worked in our favor somehow, and gave us the time to grow and the space to make mistakes as we figured out what our real needs were instead of immediately having a huge warehouse that we had to support and find the funding for. So early on, that really looked like picking food up the same morning and delivering it straight to the farm because we had a few small orders that we were able to do that with. Um, in the first year, Virginia, our co-executive director, was running routes in her minivan, just getting things moved quickly and as effectively as possible. And then as we kept growing, we would do short-term rentals of larger vehicles. And then eventually we committed to purchasing a few refrigerated vehicles so we had our own fleet. Um, Especially during local food for schools, that all helped us minimize the risk of having non-refrigerated vehicles or anything that's being transported. Um, so yeah, all of our challenges really helped us learn and grow and continue identifying the needs. So I don't know if anything we would have done like completely differently, but some of the pain points early on were figuring out those routes. It was really complex, especially early on, because we were doing pickups and deliveries the same day. Um, at the time, local lines routing didn't work exactly right for us because we needed to do pickups and deliveries at the same time. So finding a connected software that we can use and use the functionality within local line to support that was important for us. We probably could have added a routing software sooner. We were doing that all manually at first. Um, and then also figuring out payment cadences. A lot of times there are changes to orders when something is shorted. So paying the farmer weekly wasn't really working out for us. So now we do it more of like a W-2 worker would be paid. Every 2 weeks, they get a summary payment of everything that they've sold in those last 2 weeks. Um, and then lastly, the sales with restaurants have been up and down since we started. Restaurants kind of don't have a reliable need for local produce because they get those typical produce items from a mainline distributor. Um,
Mhm.
so we might not have invested so many resources into restaurants right out the get-go, especially knowing how successful some of our other sales channels have been, but it's all part of the growing process and got us to where we are today.
That's awesome. Yeah, great advice there, Ashley. I think particularly the emphasis on scaling incrementally and mastering one channel at a time before adding on a new one is really sound advice. It's awesome. Awesome. Yeah, next up, how does Local Line fit into your operations today, and how does it help you manage your multiple sales channels?
Local line, like I said, is a huge central part of making our model work. It acts as our hub for product listing, so our farmers list all the products themselves. It acts as our way of managing inventory and communicating with farmers on a regular basis about how much they have left of something. It really helps us to be able to print or aggregated order invoices. So, this is everything we're picking up from you today, not just for this one customer. Um, and then customers being able different customers having their own price lists and their own way to view different products at different markups or different size packaging. That's really helpful for us as well. Because on
Mhm.
the back end, I can say, this item, it's the same listing, but this package can go here and this package can go here. So that's really helpful for us.
Yeah.
Um, Allowing us to manage the wholesale and the retail all in one space and not have to do, wholesale manually and then retail online. That's really helpful for us. Um,
Mhm.
and then the reporting in local line is truly a major, major help for us, being able to pull sales reports. Every time I meet about production planning, I go into last year's sales data for that farm and I pull, these are your top 5 products, maybe something we want to grow more of this year. Um, and then pulling like statistics to post on social media. Those things are all super, super helpful for us. So I don't
Cool.
think that if we didn't have local line, we'd be able to manage the complexity of such a large food hub so easily. We definitely need more staff. Um, yeah, so
Well,
I super helpful to have local and
mhm.
look, you guys are so supportive when we have questions about things and are able to just reach out and have a call with you. It's amazing. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great to hear. Very cool. Just one thing I wanted to touch on again. I know you mentioned your farms are mostly managing their own inventory. Is that what you tend to see, Ashley? Most folks have a connected account or using the vendor portal where they are managing and updating their own inventory.
Yeah, that's what we really encourage with our farmers
Mhm.
because we have so many farms. We do have a couple that are managed vendors where they send us their list, just because they're at a scale where it wouldn't be possible for them to do that. But it's
Mhm.
really convenient for them to not have to email us halfway through the week and say, "Okay, I'm out of inventory on these. Here's what I have left." They can just do that all on the back end. We all have one source of truth to refer to.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's very helpful.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Yeah, from there, for folks who are thinking about expanding into a multi-channel model, I know you shared a lot of great advice already, but any other advice you would share, Ashley?
Yeah, just kind of reiterating some of my prior points. I would say don't scale too quickly is my one key advice that I give. Starting with one channel, whether that be retail or wholesale, and then figuring out what your strengths and weaknesses are from there, and expanding as you are able to is kind of how we've tried to build a strong foundation for our organization and support our farmers at every step of the way. So. Uh, Maybe I would say defining the role of each channel and like how it plays into your whole organization. So, how are we going to use this to support our overall mission of the Food Council rather than just, profit generation for our farms? That's really important to us, but we also want to make sure we're supporting our mission. So,
Awesome.
um, yeah, building everything around the needs of your farmers or your customers, whatever is the focus of your organization. Really, we are a farmer serving organization and we're trying to make things as easy as possible for them. So, using the customization that you can do in local line and using all the resources available to small farmers to support them the best that we can.
Awesome. Yeah, lots of great lessons here. I love that you guys really emphasize focusing on the needs of your farmers and your buyers. Sounds like you're providing a really great service. That wraps up my questions. So I'll hand it back over to Nina. I think she's going to bring up some questions from the chat now.
Yeah,
Awesome.
awesome. Thank you so much, Ashley. That was amazing and so insightful and super helpful, tangible, actionable advice. So really appreciate you going through that. We have some great questions coming in from the audience. So we'll jump into those. For anyone who has any other questions, just pop them into the chat and we will address them. First question here is from Stephen. Is Region Roots a farm cooperative? If so, what type of insurance covers your members?
We are a cooperative, so we collect insurance from each new vendor farm that gets onboarded. We get a certificate of insurance for them with
Mhm.
region roots listed as additionally insured. So we have all of that filed away in case there were a food safety issue. We have the liability insurance from our farms, and then we also have our own personal liability.
Got it. Awesome. A question here from Mark. What trends are you seeing at the wholesale level in terms of demand? He asked specifically for restaurants, but maybe you could share for the other channels that you guys have.
Yeah, restaurant wholesale sales were definitely a bigger thing right after the pandemic. I think the farm to table movement had really sparked at that time. And I think it's still definitely going now, but restaurants have kind of fallen off as our top sellers. We are really focused, probably because of the complexities of politics and just the world right now. We've been really trying to lean into supporting community programs, other organizations that are doing similar work to us. So I would say the trend, at least for our food hub, is that restaurants are a little less interested at this point,
Mhm.
possibly because they're trying to, stay above water, stay afloat. And then for us, that has transitioned into supporting home deliveries for the average everyday consumer, and then also supporting produce box programs and things like that. So.
Got it. That's super clear. If anyone has any follow-ups to any of these questions, be sure to pop them in the chat as well. Question here from Grant. How do you manage receiving accurate availability from farmers? I think we kind of went into this talking about those connected vendors and updating their own inventory, but maybe we could reiterate. He asked further, are they able to post directly through local line, or do you have to manage and post that yourself?
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with the backside of local line, so you basically invite a farmer to be a connected vendor through you, and then they list their products. You just mark them as being shared with you, and then you can show them on your storefront, but it's still labeled as that farm's produce. So they are able to consistently every day. They could do it multiple times a day if needed. They're able to mark how much of things they have available. You can also do shared inventory between package sizes or split inventory, which our farmers really appreciate. So yeah, it is very much automated on the back end. For those managed vendors that do send us their lists, I try and do that a couple times a week. They just usually emailed me a list and then I'll go in and update that. But the connected vendor is really, really helpful to lessen that administrative burden. Yeah.
100%. Question here from follow up from Stephen. Do you offer light processing? So any washing, cutting, packing for your institutional clients?
We do not. We have a lot of partners that do that type of work. So we partner with Kalamazoo Valley Hub up in Kalamazoo, Michigan. They do a lot of processing, a lot of light processing, like cutting corn cobs or just freezing tomatoes, things like that. So we partner with local organizations, which also, contributes to our mission of supporting the community and making sure that farms are viable and things like that. So any small farm that does their own processing that we're able to partner with to send other farms produce to, we like to do that. But we don't have the capacity to process. Yeah.
Got it. Totally fair. I think this may be my question more for Andrew. Can you adjust pricing for the same products by buyer versus, or sorry, by farmer, oh my gosh, by farmer versus type of buyer? So maybe talking a little bit about the priceless functionality here.
Yeah, you absolutely can, Stephen. We can make price adjustments at the price list level. So in Ashley's case, they have, almost I think half a dozen different price lists. We could list, for instance, a bunch of carrots across all of those price lists at different price points. So they could be sold direct to consumer for $4 a bunch, farm to school for 350, wholesale to restaurants for 3. Beyond that, they could also be offered in different package sizes. So we could make higher volume quantities available to specific buyers as well. So there's a lot of granularity when it comes to offering different pricing and package sizes of a single product to different buyers.
100%. Question back for Ashley. How do you coordinate all of your farmers to be consistent with updating their inventories? And then a follow-up question, how did you onboard them? They have a network of about 30 farmers right now and having a hard time getting the farmers onto the system because they're so busy on the farm and aren't the most tech savvy either. Do you have any tips for that?
Yeah, for the onboarding, we have a one-on-one meeting to go over absolutely every step of how to get onboarded with Local Line with every farmer that we onboard. So we usually have a first, intro meeting where we just reach out and talk about what they grow, how they heard about us, all that good stuff. And then we have a later, more in-depth meeting. Um, this is exactly what you need to do for our hub. And then I also refer them to your guys' help page, which is super helpful. You have a lot of how-tos on how to get things listed. So that has been helpful for us. We are talking about maybe developing some more personalized region roots focused instructions for buyers. So like schools that have trouble getting onboarded with a new distributor system, things like that. But can you remind me what was the first part of the question before?
Yeah, the first cut was just kind of beyond onboarding. How do you coordinate with the farms that you work with to make sure that they're updating their inventories on a consistent cycle?
Yes, so that is a challenge for sure, especially with, 30, 40, 50 farms. I would say communicating with them inside and outside of local lines. So checking that their inventory has been updated or whatever the case may be in local line, and then consistently communicating with them via text or email as well. I try and at least talk to all my farmers like once a week, just check in, let me know what's coming for next week. But yeah, that is something that I think is true about any software platform. You just have to have someone go in and update it. So, making sure that they're really on board with it when you get them onboarded and that they know exactly what they need to do and that they have a resource to come back to if they have questions is what I try and do. But definitely a challenge.
For sure, for sure. I guess kind of follow-up question maybe to the onboarding piece is what certifications or licenses, if any, does a farm or farmer need to sell wholesale or sell through your channels?
Yeah, so a lot of our partner hubs require GAP certification, so just a full USDA approval for food safety. We don't require GAP certification unless you are also an aggregator of produce. So if we are purchasing from someone that purchases from multiple farms, we need to know where all that came from. So they would need the record for the GAP certification. Outside of that, we require the Produce Safety Alliance grower training so that everyone has at least a basic handle on food safety. Typically, our farms have already completed that when they're coming to us, but if they haven't, we make sure that that gets done quickly. We also do walkthroughs for food safety. We do that annually to check in with them. So yeah, just I would say the PSA is the main thing. Sometimes GAP, and then really just getting your own eyes on everything and making sure that everything looks up to standard is how we approach that.
For sure, for sure. No, that's a great overview. Pivoting back onto a more specific local line question, so I'll ask this to you, Andrew. So, Carrie, they have a CSA and a retail store. Does local line allow integration of multiple payment systems and inventory? For example, we use Square in our store, but manage our CSA in another CSA software, which makes inventory and accounting very difficult. We also take Snap and EBT and are having a hard time finding systems that integrate all of them.
Yeah, that's a great and very timely question. We do have a POS integration currently, and we are also going to be announcing our new Square Sync POS integration, I think next week, Nina, is the latest I've
Yeah.
heard. We've seen internal demos, we're doing beta testing. So, really, really excited about that. While the current local line POS works, what we're going to be releasing is, to me, the ultimate solution in that it's going to allow people to use any Square hardware and the Square software to log in-person orders, and then we're going to automatically sync those orders back into local line where it will deduct inventory and record the sale. So, long way of answering that. Yes, we can integrate multiple payment systems within local line. There's a lot of flexibility for payments. We can do ACH, credit cards with low fees, custom payments with no fees. So lots of flexibility there. In terms of Snap, we are currently unable to do Snap payments online, but a lot of folks will create Snap EBT as a manual payment method that a customer could select at checkout and then tap their card to pay with Snap in person. So that's the current solution for Snap.
For sure. I guess follow-up question that I'll just ask immediately, asking about accepting Cash App and Venmo.
Yeah, so those would be classified as a manual payment as well. So we can create things like, Zelle, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal as custom payment options. You would just include instructions at checkout on how the customer pays you. So whether it's a username to send the funds to. I always encourage people to manually mark those orders as paid when the payment is received, just to stay organized in the orders table.
For sure. Um, Another local line specific question from Alice. Does local line manage the kind of production plan side? So, for example, if a farmer projects 600 potatoes from December to December, is that long-term planning in the system? Can it be adjusted as projections change? So kind of essentially adding projections into the sales software.
It's not. Local Line is not a crop planning or production planning software. That's where I would personally suggest looking into something like Tend, Heirloom. There's a number of crop planning softwares out there that are going to be a lot better at doing that type of thing.
For sure.
Mhm.
Question that I'm going to ask to both of you. So obviously Andrew on the local sign and Ashley kind of as a local line user and working as a hub. Jane says we are very rural with a lot of distance between cities. So my fellow colleagues and I are starting a network of farm stands across our region and would be carrying each other's products as well as products from farmers without a farm stand. Could the local line hub system help with this? And would this kind of infrastructure be categorized as a co-op or a buying club? And then a very specific question of what's the best approach to insurance for this structure? I'm just curious on both of your thoughts there.
I mean, I can speak from our perspective. We are also in a very rural area. I mean, our hub is in kind of a more urban area in Indiana, but all of our farms are across Indiana. So, local line is definitely helpful for tracking the inventory, making all the listings, keeping track of the invoicing, the deliveries, the dates for everything. I would say if nothing else, it would be a great record keeping software for you guys. We have had to go with a different routing software for pickups just because of how we operate. So maybe that would be true for you guys as well. But yeah, I mean, it's a great record keeping system, if nothing else.
Thanks. That's awesome. Andrew, anything to add to this?
Yeah, you absolutely could use it. In terms of, what you'd like to call it, it could be something like a farm stop. We're seeing that name being used a fair bit, or a farm hub. I think especially with this new Square Sync integration, if you guys are exclusively selling in person, that could be a really helpful way of, yeah, doing what you're mentioning there, Jane.
Mm-hmm.
Something,
Oh, sorry,
sorry.
go ahead, Ashley.
No, I was just going to say something else that's been helpful for us is the barcode creator in local line when we do markets, having the ability to quickly enter things rather than having to look through the products on the computer is very helpful. And I imagine would be helpful for a farm stop as well. So
100%. Question for Andrew from Caitlin. I saw that Local Line now has a distribution partnership with Cisco and GFS in the US. Is this feature coming to Canada? Do we have any kind of insights there?
I don't know if I'm really at liberty to speak about that. We are looking at doing that as for a timeline. I couldn't really say, but it's definitely on our radar and something we're working on.
For sure.
Mhm.
And then a follow-up question from Alice regarding the production planning. And maybe I'll ask this to Ashley as well, if this is kind of something that comes up for you guys. The question was not so much about helping the farmer manage their production plan, but more enabling the food hub to have visibility of changes in planned production in order to hedge or adjust the sales commitment. So maybe is that a part of how you guys manage your inventory with your farmers? Is there kind of the projection? How do you go about that?
yeah, we use the inventory and local line as a very current, like, this is what I have right now to move.
Mhm.
We did talk about trying to figure out a way to use local line as a way to use like production plans and initial projections and then how that would change over time. The conclusion we came to was that it was easier to develop a spreadsheet where a Google spreadsheet where that it's always updating. So we can communicate through there via comments, and then we would put, this is your initial projection right now for this week. Let me check in with you about that 3 weeks before that week's coming up and see if that's still how it's looking. So kind of a more manual way of doing it, but I think in partnership with them putting their current inventory in local line, it's been effective for us.
For sure. For sure. That's awesome. One more question here, and then we'll wrap up today's workshop. So this is a follow-up from Jane. In regards to the farm stand structure, would one hub setup work for multiple locations, or would each physical location be its own hub?
Yeah, I think we could achieve that with one hub account that is selling across multiple locations. So it would not require multiple accounts. You could do that all from one centralized local line account.
Awesome. Alrighty. Well, thank you so much to everyone who joined us today. Thank you for your great questions. If you have any other questions for us at the team, you can always email us info@localline.ca, find us on our website, reach out to us on any socials. So really appreciate that. Yes, Andrew popped in here. Maybe Andrew, if you want to speak to that link there quickly.
Yeah, for sure. Just wanted to share that with everybody. If anyone would like to see a demo of Local Line or just chat a little bit more about how it works, I'd be happy to meet with you. That's my meeting link there. So please feel free to book a call if you're interested.
Amazing. And then a huge, huge thank you to Ashley and the Region Roots team for joining us today. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, your advice, how you guys are set up, the ins and outs of your hub. I think this is super helpful for those currently doing what you're doing or thinking about doing what you're doing. So really, really appreciate that. Ashley, if anyone wants to learn more about Region Roots, about what you guys do, where can they go?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can go to nwifoodcouncil.org or regionroots.org. They both have links to sign up for our online store if you're in our area. So those would be the best place to get started. Or you can email me. It's just ashley@nwifoodcouncil.org. But yeah, thank you so much, you guys. It has been great to be here today. And I love talking about how we use local line and how we can make it easier for other farms out there to do the same thing. So.
Amazing. Thank you so much. As I mentioned, the recording will be sent out either later today or early tomorrow morning. So again, thank you so much, and we'll see everyone at the next one.